Did you know that when heated to the proper temperature, you can melt an entire human body into a puddle with lye solution? My sister-in-law Tanya's voice poked a crack in my concentration, shattering the mental list I'd built in my head. "The fuck?" I asked her. "Something you're wanting to tell me?" I joked as I nudged her ribs with my elbow. If she responded, I sure as hell didn't hear her. The colors, shapes, and scents were too mesmerizing. We'd fallen victim to Sunday boredom and decided to go to the Tavistock Gallery for some retail therapy. The soap shop was the last place we stopped at. Nothing makes the time pass like spending money. A pretty employee wearing a wide smile walked over to us. The crisp name tag perched on her left shoulder read the name Jane in italic letters. My stomach immediately flipped. I always hated it when sales clerks bothered me while I was trying to browse. I know it's their job. It just makes me super nervous. So naturally, the second she asked if we needed any help, I said no in the politest and firmest way possible. However, Tanya spoke over me, as she often did when we were together. "Hello, Jane. I have a few questions if you have time." The lady perked up at this, shifting her attention from me to my sister-in-law. "Of course. What can I help you with?" Here we go, I thought wryly. Tanya was going to waste my time by badgering this woman. What's worse is that she didn't even come here to buy anything. She just came into the store because I did. I tried to stifle a groan with annoyance as she cleared her throat, crossing her arms over her chest in preparation for an unnecessary battle of wits. "Do you make the soap on site or is it delivered?" "We mostly make it on site with a few exceptions," Jane replied pleasantly. Tanya gingerly picked up an opaque green and brown layered soap bar, holding it up for both of us to see. "Is this glycerin or olive-based oil? It smells fabulous, but it's obvious this is from a melt and pour brick." She flipped it over, revealing the price on the back. $12.99, she exclaimed. "Tanya," I tried to interrupt her, to no avail, of course. She simply brushed me off and continued. "You do realize that you can make an entire soap brick for that price, right?" Jane's cheek flushed a sunset pink, but she remained professional nonetheless. "Yes, ma'am. Those are our vegan bars. They contain vegetable glycerin and are made off-site and shipped to us here in the shop." My sister-in-law seemed nonplussed by this, as if genetically coded to be a pain in the ass. Her lips drew into a condescending smile. "Well, I guess if you slap the word vegan on the label, you can charge just about anything. The bricks that are made here in the shop, are they olive oil based?" Jane seemed relieved to answer a less confrontational inquiry. "Some are, yes. Our lye-made soaps have different bases for different benefits. We have olive oil for firmness, goat's milk for moisture, and we just got our hemp oil based last week. The one you're holding in your hand is more clear. That's how you can tell it wasn't made here naturally." My sister-in-law's eyebrows raised slightly. She was clearly impressed. Jane continued. "Once the lye gets mixed with the oil or milk solution, it turns into a creamy eggnog color." I walked off at this point, leaving them to their stimulating conversation. As much as Jane seemed to be enjoying it, if Tanya was holding her verbally hostage, the least I could do was buy something. I kept walking until they were just out of earshot, not fully realizing at first that I had walked past the sales area and had stumbled into what looked like a back storage room. It wasn't nearly as fragrant as the front sales floor, but I did recognize the silhouettes of soap bins. I can't really explain why I did what I did next. Maybe it was the stress of the holiday season. Maybe it was the subconscious suffocation I felt due to my husband's sister moving in with me after he unexpectedly died. Maybe I just wanted to make the same childish decisions I'd made in malls when I was young. But, for whatever reason, I reached inside the closest one to me. My hands clasped around as many as they could before plunging them deep into the bottom of my purse. Despite the fluorescent lighting in the majority of the store, this area was pitch dark. So dark that my breath hitched in my throat when I saw someone charging toward me. The shirt and pants she wore were black, so at first she looked like an angry, disembodied head, if not for the white of her shoes. I'd have thought I was losing my mind.
"Hey, you can't be in here. This area is prohibited to customers."
She slid sleek safety glasses over the top of her head before continuing.
"This leads to our soap on-site area, which is dangerous with materials and chemicals."
She gestured toward the sales floor with a black-gloved hand. Embarrassed and relieved at not getting caught, I mumbled an apology, spun on my heel, and caught back up with Tanya. Thankfully, her conversation with Jane had ended, and she'd moved on to sniffing and browsing. Ultimately, we bought 2 soaps each, a body bar and a shampoo bar. The anxiety of my pilfered goods began gnawing at my gut, eating away bits of it like termites on wood as we stood in the checkout line. Tanya went on and on about shampoo bars, and I politely nodded in agreement even though I'd absorbed virtually nothing about what she said. We just stepped up the line when a frantic woman reeking of smoke cut in front of us, desperately grasping the front counter with both hands. I mouthed a "what the fuck" to my sister-in-law as the woman in front of us started to ask questions about an incense shop. The living ashtray wasn't even fucking buying anything. As much as I wanted to say something, I couldn't risk causing a scene. By the time I'd get the nerve up, it would have been our turn in line anyway. True to thought, the woman was soon gone, leaving nothing behind but the smell of soot and a bad taste in my mouth. We got rang up, made small talk, paid, and left the store. My purse was a bit heavier, and little Jane was none the wiser. I couldn't wait to get home and see what my grab bag contained. The ride home was silent. I'd avoided speaking to Tanya and pretended to concentrate on my phone as she drove. If we began talking, she'd get comfortable. And when she got comfortable, she brought up her brother. I know she meant well, and I missed him too, just in a different way. Sure, she grew up with him, but he was the love of my life. It still hurt me to talk about it. After the door to my room was tightly closed, I emptied the contents of my purse onto the bed. It was due to being cleaned out soon anyway. A slight frown formed on my face to notice that a lot of them were Halloween shapes. They looked like individual hand soaps and all smelled incredible. My work had its annual Christmas party that night, and I figured they'd be perfect in gift bags. We each picked Secret Santa partners. I just couldn't help but make a little something up for everyone. It was a great night all in all. We opened gifts after we'd all been drinking, so my soaps went over amazingly well. My Secret Santa got me a fancy purse and candle set. The Italian restaurant Amici's down the street catered it, leading me to eat way more than I should have. Nothing really remarkable took place, honestly. It's what happened after that was worth noting. First, Erica Matheson called in to explain that she was taking bereavement leave. Her son had suffered a horrible accident, which led to him passing away at only 9 years old. A swarm of bees surrounded her son when he was playing in their backyard. His little throat closed almost immediately, despite him never having an allergy to them. I didn't think anything of it at first. But then our supervisor, Carson, got into a car accident and broke both of his legs. A sinking feeling resonated throughout my body as I recalled placing the extra soaps in his bag. They were bone-shaped, left over from Halloween, and they were broken. That's why I gave him extra. It seemed beyond absurd that the two could be connected, but then I also remembered that the bag I gave to Erica had honey and milk-scented soap bees in them. My mind raced to remember the other soaps I'd placed in bags. I bit at my lip out of dread and anxiety, not stopping until it bled. Grant Brierson received a Ziploc bag full of brain-shaped soaps. They were red and white tie-dyed and rose-scented. He'd suffered an aneurysm and died 6 days later. 2 more employees received soap gravestones, and while one didn't die, their family suffered a devastating loss. The other, of course, died soon after the new year. In my state of hysteria, a flood of warmth came over me to remember giving the new girl, Cassandra Pete, seashell and rose-shaped soaps. At that moment, there was no conceivable way in my mind that those could turn out to be harmful, much less cause death. Regretfully, the newspapers proved otherwise. Like I mentioned before, she was new, so with all of the tragedy taking place, no one thought twice when she didn't return to the office. I mean, who the hell would have? But on page A5 of the local newspaper, yes, we still got those, there was an article about a local girl who'd been taken out on a boat and didn't make it back. Investigators found evidence of gunpowder on the inside of her boyfriend's boat, along with a box of roses, scattered rose petals, and stem pieces. It was assumed he proposed. She said no, and he shot her point blank. The bullet went through the bouquet of flowers he'd given her before striking her and knocking her overboard. At the time of the article, her boyfriend was arrested, but her body hadn't been found. Naturally, work became impossible to show up to. My mind grasped at any straw it could, sane or insane, to create some good of a terrible situation. I needed a shred of hope, no matter how small. Something to make this all worth it. There's one last soap left. The largest one I'd saved for myself. It's pumpkin cream scented and is in the shape of a smiling ghost. And there are still more soaps to be used by the employees. I won't waste more time explaining the results. Suffice it to say that at this point, I don't give a fuck what happens to me. I'm going to toast to Tavistock, get sloppy drunk, then take the longest and hottest shower of my life. I'll use ghost soap, and one of 2 things will happen. Either my husband, discorporated spirit, will materialize in our home, keeping me company until it's my time to join him, or it will end my own life, quickening the path to reuniting with my love. Whatever happens, I'll be happy with either option.